Alright, hello again to anyone watching these Kaijudo videos. Today I'm back with another solo commentary on a match played in the Rangers Dojo Kaijudo Open that I was hosting. So this match is actually the final match that I played in the event. I think I've got all of them up already, so I figured I might as well just throw up the last one, just to get all my matches out there. So the match I'm playing is against Loui, and of course we are the two Haven decks in the tournament. So myself on the right actually with the Light Nature ramp deck, and Loui on the left with the Fire Dark Nature Light, much more general controlling build. So kind of an interesting matchup. Obviously, I have a way more top end with the full three Havens. The three Cassiopeia as well is just a big deal. Cassiopeia, really crucial card for fighting those Haven mirror matches, especially. Also, important to note, I have just a few more, or several more, direct pieces of card advantage as well, with 3 Reap and Sow plus a Mana Storm plus 3 Verdant Helix is just a lot of card advantage. Just to make sure that I can consistently get up to those big creatures. And on Louis' side, I mean, he's got some really important stuff. The discard, especially with Mesmerize and Spire Puppet, can be really key interactive cards. If they can snipe a Haven early, it's really crucial because there's a lot of Haven wars. This matchup can come down a lot, of course, like most control matchups, to getting down a Haven, having your stick, and being able to kind of trump what your opponent's doing. And on top of that, though, I have the Ironwool Tree, which is a crucial card for me in this matchup to be able to shut down his discard. So pretty interesting. I mean, Underworld Stalker is another very crucial card for him as well, being a card paired with stuff like Stormspark Blast can just out a Haven, which is actually really crucial. So overall, going into the matchup, I definitely felt like I was the favorite, but it was also a matchup I was kind of worried about playing, just because I felt like it was mostly just going to come down to luck for the most part. Obviously, like, I could just play terribly and punt the match away like you could with any game you ever play, right? So, but in general, if we're just like playing the matchup to my general capabilities, I felt like I was the pretty decent favorite. But it was mostly, like I said, it's going to come down to luck to some extent, because in my view, it felt like what was really going on was we're basically trying to accomplish the same thing. It's just that my deck is better at doing it because, like I said, I think overall when you look at the list in this matchup, I just have more cards that are relevant, and also my deck is 4 cards fewer than Louis'. So not only do I have more cards, but even if we had the same number, the density of my cards is even higher in terms of cards that are relevant compared to cards that aren't. So because of that, and the fact that I have just more pieces of card advantage, I felt it just really made my ability to achieve what we're both trying to achieve that much more likely for my end compared to Louis'. Like, there's just going to be a lot more games where I'm able to find a second Haven and stick it. Whereas from Louis' side of the matchup, I mean, it's just basically like that's what I felt. I felt like I was mostly just, if I was able to dodge the bad variance being either drawing really, really below average or Louis drawing very exceptional. Because again, like, I think on average, like, I'm just going to win the great, like, by a decent majority of the time, just because, again, I have a higher density of relevant cards, and yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Like, the key cards again for Louis, he's got his basically Haven, the discard cards, Underworld Stalker plus Stormspark Blast. Those are really relevant. Reap and Sow is incredibly relevant as his only piece of card advantage. So, and then the Sprite's Gift being able to be other copies of the already named kind of relevant cards. Andromeda is kind of relevant, but it's a loss. I felt like it's actually a lot less relevant for Louis than it is for me. But I mean, it's still a relevant card, I guess. Infernus is decently relevant in some spots, but doesn't really matter too much, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, I compared to my deck where I have like Reap and Sows, Verdant Helix, Mana Storms, Ironwool Tree, and then the Cass, Haven, and Andros, like all of that stuff. I just felt like, yeah, I felt like it was mostly just going to be about dodging the bad luck or whatever you want to call it. I felt like the only games I would really lose are the games where like Louis able to find multiple copies of Reap and Sow or have a few discard cards, and I don't have an Iron Will tree, and then but he also kind of needs. The weird thing about the discard cards is that I feel like they might not even be that good all the time unless they specifically start hitting havens, because him just using Mesmerize to pick apart or just to take a card away from me, it basically the problem with discard with his list is that it basically just puts both people down resources, because obviously Spire Puppet is a +1, but the creature in play, you're not really converting that into anything very often in this matchup until way down the road when you might be using it to go for game or something like that, or maybe paired with tap effects it can be relevant obviously for picking off and trading off with something like an Iron Will tree, but then that's kind of weird because Iron Will trees didn't play before the puppet. So it's just a weird situation. For the most part, it's almost like a virtual 1-for-1 in this matchup, just a disruptive card. And that's the weird thing about the discard is, again, he's discarding cards out of his hand to discard cards out of my hand. But the problem is, because that density of relevant cards favors me, him just using discard like that, unless it's specifically hitting the really crucial cards, which it will a fair amount of the time, like getting me down on havens can be a way he wins in the long game. But for the most part, it just puts us both down resources, and then I just top deck better. And then with multiple pieces of card advantage, it's much easier for me to play out of those situations where we're both playing from from a point of very low resources. Whereas again, his deck with just the 3 Reap and Sows, it's harder for him to do that. And that's kind of one of the issues is we get into these kind of draw pass back and forth where we're just both trying to hit land drops. And again, my deck, I felt, played is better from that position overall. But again, like I was saying, that's kind of where you just have to dodge the stuff. Because like I said, if he just has a very above average draw where he draws multiple Reap and Sows, he finds a haven right away, even though he's only playing the 2. If he finds like a Stalker, finds a Stormspark to pair with it to clear my first haven, even if I'm able to drop the haven first. Like if on average, like I said, on average I'll just win a lot. But the thing is, like, I don't have some like fundamental edge in terms of like my strategy just completely counters his. It's more just we're trying to do the same thing for the most part. I'm just better at executing that thing. And at that point it's just a percentage game. Like my deck has the edge because I can do it 70% of the time. His deck doesn't because he can only do it 60%, however you want to think about it. That's how I kind of conceptualize it. And my edge is in that extra consistency. But obviously in any given game, those percentages aren't going to be the same in any given game isn't going to be the same as what you're looking at on average. So if you just hit a bad game, like, you can just lose. So that was kind of my concern is that I felt it was going to be somewhat out of my control going in. But yeah, overall, I felt I was a pretty solid favorite. And one of the big keys I think in this matchup too is I actually felt like going second was like a pretty significant edge. It just like mitigates a lot of the discard from Louis' deck in particular. Just giving me that extra card. Again, there's going to be a ton of draw pass. Kaijudo doesn't function maybe like a game like Duel Masters, which Louis is a little more used to playing, where there's a lot of cards that just generate inherent advantage that are also proactive and that you're playing. It's a very different dynamic. And there's a lot more pressure to be ahead on land drops for various reasons. But in Kaijudo, we're playing towards these 10 mana cards, and there's going to be a lot of situations where you just draw passing, especially when you look at the deck list presented here. There's just going to be a lot of like, you're on 8 mana, I'm on 8 mana, we're both draw, charge, passing, not really wanting to make the first move, just trying to get to that 10 mana card, and having the extra resource in those games does matter a lot. And I felt like my deck going second was an even heavier favorite. His deck going second is also closes the gap by a lot in my experience going into this matchup. So I was kind of worried he might be onto that strategy going in, and that would make my edge even. It would shrink my edge even less to an even smaller amount if he was kind of on the same wavelength I was, because I was definitely planning on going second every game that I possibly could. And but yeah, obviously if he's on the same wavelength, then it actually can kind of hurt my chances, because then it means, I mean, one of the benefits of like knowing that you want to be going second is that your opponent might not know that you want to go second. So even if they win the die roll, you get the result you want because they go first, and it's kind of interesting to see how that pans out. But yeah, jumping right into game one here. Loui, of course, playing on the bottom. I'm playing on the top. Yeah, and he won the die roll and elected to go first, which I was very happy about. Like I just touched on, happy to get that extra card and go second. And when you look at the opening hands, I mean, Louis's got really none of the super relevant cards. I mean, Arbiters, Terrapits, like all these cards are kind of long game stuff. And charging the Sprite's Gift, it makes sense when you haven't, but now you're almost immediately punished for that, unfortunately. Because the thing is, like, just charging or playing Sprout's not a very big priority, to be honest. In this matchup, I would probably, if I'm Loui, I might not even cast this Sprout. I don't think, because from my perspective, again, like from my experience going into this, I did do a little bit of prep. Obviously, it's kind of on doing my own thing, whatever. It's how much stock you want to put into it. But on my prep going in, I mean, I felt like, as I touched on earlier too, like your relevant cards, like Sprite's Gift is one of your relevant cards. And now it's only kind of relevant if you've already charged like a relevant card. And in this case, if you're not sprouting, then it's not like you're probably just going to hold the relevant card. So it's kind of weird and awkward in that sense. But we kind of see the result of that when you play the Sprout and you lose the Haven. Now you wish you had the Sprite's Gifts, which is kind of whatever. I mean, it might not play out that way. But I guess more what I'm trying to get at too is that, like, going over the long course of a long game, I do kind of want to hold this Sprite's Gift. And on top of that, I would like to be able to also cast Reap and Sow if I draw it, and I feel like I'd rather like just I might just look to charge this Sprout and then keep the Sprite's Gift and be able to potentially draw into like a Reap and Sow and cast it off the Sprout rather than the Sprite's Gift. That's kind of my thinking. Playing for like a longer game. On top of that, you could just draw a full meta lemon. Like, there's not really any pressure to get this Sprout cast right away. In my belief, like obviously you can draw Reap and Sow off the top, but still, like at some point in this matchup, you're gonna be draw passing or draw charge passing, and wasting mana and missing extra land drops, or at some point you're basically not going to be taking advantage of the fact that Sprout was like an extra land drop, just because you run out of cards in hand anyways, and that Sprout could have been just regularly charged. And I think because of that, I think like it's not something you need to cast right away, I don't think. So I would consider holding it until I have like a better nature mana to charge than Sprite's Gift. Especially one other thing that I didn't touch on. One of the reasons Sprite's Gift as well is an important card going long is that Underworld Stalker is another one of Louis' really key cards in this matchup. It can be a really annoying threat for me to deal with. It answers Havens and it makes it awkward to play against. And the threat of it being paired with a Stormspark is also really relevant. So I make a point of kind of valuing my root traps a little bit higher so that I can deal with Stalker. But the Sprite's Gift Stalker combo is really annoying as well, because he can just eliminate the root trap, and then it actually makes it very tough if he's able to piece that combination together for me to actually out a Stalker and protect my Havens potentially. So holding Sprite's Gift for that purpose as well can be good going in long games. Now, it could be the case that like you have to charge a Sprite's Gift at some point anyways, but I would be, again, looking to potentially hold this Sprite's Gift for the late game, potentially, and then there you go. You could just charge this Tendril Grasp to cast a Sprout instead. Like, I don't think there was any rush to be able to cast that Sprout immediately, and I'd rather have just held this Sprite's Gift. But then on my end, I mean, I'm just ramping as well. Very unfortunate to see that Reap and Sow go down. And then I could cast both sprouts here. I guess I cast one. I mean, you could also just never cast any of them. There's no real, like, similar to what I was talking about. I mean, you could just hold them so that when you're drawing, I mean, it's kind of whatever. The thing is, like, I don't know, you could come up with different reasons, like Sprout digging you that extra card deeper. I mean, when you draw Verdant Helixes later, you can kind of get stuff out of your mana zone, and then that Sprout kind of digs through your deck to get more relevant Verdant Helix targets, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of weird. But I opt to hold the second one just to be a decent charge. Because, again, like, I'm running out of cards anyways, so I might as well just charge it for turn. But here, yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if that's even worth doing. Like, I feel like I could just get away with, because I don't want to charge that Haven next turn anyways. I could definitely get away with, like, I should have just held the Sprout, or charged the Sprout and held the tree. Then on Louis' end, obviously he's developing his hand, just charging his redundant stuff, like getting rid of those arbiters. Just, again, like, just lots of just draw passing. And then now he gets to land in Andromeda. I was a bit worried of, like, Awaken coming down, killing this tree, and then maybe he's, like, sandbagging. He could be, I don't know, like a Spire Puppet he drew into or something, but just Andromeda, which obviously gives him a bunch of shields, but the long game, I'm just gonna kind of win. And here I just get the Haven down. I guess there's an argument for passing. You could maybe get greedy and do that, which is fair, actually, to be honest. But there's so many good tap cards I can draw into. But the Cassiopeia is just such a good answer if he did have his Haven. That the problem is then I'm playing so far behind if I just skip a turn of dropping. So, and yeah, that's just a crazy amount of shields on Louis' end. But yeah, I just get to build up my board decently well. And this is why, like, Haven's just so gross too, because I mean, you just get the fact that you get to draw cards is just kind of disgusting. There's an argument too to not cast this second tree just because of Tendril Grass being an out to both of them at the same time. You'd probably like the sandbag one, because again, like, I'm not under any pressure here. Not again, I guess, just first time I'm saying it, but I'm not really under any pressure, so there's no real reason to make a point of getting that second tree. It's not really challenging on anything on board. So yeah, not really a crucial need to get that into play. Probably better to just save the mana. Or not save the mana, but just save the card in hand so that I can redeploy it later. But yeah, I mean, now I'm just getting far ahead. Louis just drawing cards that aren't particularly relevant, and I just gotta. I mean, I just gotta keep clearing his board, keep drawing. The fact that Louis lost his Haven early. I mean, he's just so unlikely to see another one now. But he's got that one Sprite's Gift, but one Sprite's Gift and one Haven left that he can draw into. And then here, yeah, this was kind of awkward. I point out just to make sure, this is just a really obnoxious way of going about it, but I point out just to make sure that he knows that the tree is there, and then he confirms that he does. He just wants to see the hand. Just to get a bit of information, which is definitely reasonable. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I'm under no real pressure to attack, especially, I don't know. Like, it's just so unlikely he finds the Haven or anything relevant, and I can just wait for all these other big bombs to come down. And now I have my own Andromeda. Which is huge. And I don't know, maybe I think about attacking now. It's just a weird spot because obviously in general my deck is usually going to be the one that's having to worry about deck out and the one that's going to be forced to attack into these Andromeda shields. So I guess, yeah, I opt to go for it. It's just scary because if he finds his own haven, I actually don't have like the best way of getting through it. If he just like finds a terror pit for my Andromeda, then I might be in a situation where, I mean, it's unlikely. The thing is, it's unlikely for his deck to land the second haven, which is kind of the good thing I have going for me. Um, if he finds the first one, it's just like pretty unlikely that he finds the second one. But still, it is kind of a concern. That if he just finds a terror pit for this Andromeda, then his haven is kind of going to go unchallenged. But he's still a ways away of being able to actually like out the rest of my stuff. But I'm a ways away from finding other threats, I guess. So I don't know. It's just I could definitely have just waited until I found like another big top end thing. Um, yeah, but him whiffing on terror pit there is a big deal. Because now, like, I mean, he knows about the Storm Spark, so him jamming the Haven now is just, he's pretty doomed at that point because I can just Storm Spark. Obviously, I could try just go for a lethal push, but I would probably just trade the Andromeda, which just puts him so far out of the game because he needs this Haven to be able to probably accomplish anything. But I don't know, even then, even with the Haven, it's kind of iffy. So it looks like, yeah, he's adjusting his mana for the Sprite's Gift. So he actually did find. Yeah, this could have gone really downhill. If he just found a single Terra Pit off out of shields, then he would have been in a really good position because he actually found double Haven, which is kind of crazy. But he could just, yeah, drop the first Haven, and then if he's able to untap with it and land the second off Sprite's Gift, then all of a sudden, like, his board is just really powerful, hard for me to attack through. Um, Obviously, like, a Cassiopeia is going to be really good for me because I can just like cast his board and then just make a push with this Haven. So like I'm by no means out of it at that point. I'm probably still ahead. Um, but it does make things tricky. And yeah, but him whiffing on Terra Pit, which to be fair, I mean it's all we had is like two Terra Pits to be able to. So it's kind of unlikely overall that he gets the sequence he needs, which is like the double Haven and one of Terra Pits, which he has like 4 cards total, and he's got, I don't know, it's just probably a lot to ask for. But I mean, he was only 1 card away from being able to do it, so now he's in a weird spot where, yeah, just running out the Haven seems so hopeless. And then in terms of like his Sprites Gift stuff, I mean, it's not even that hopeless. Like maybe you just have to do it. Just jam the first Haven, sacrifice it to the Storm Spark. It at least probably gets me to lose my Andromeda. Obviously, I'm making a potential lethal push, which is really, really scary for him. Um, but maybe it's something you just have to. Yeah, it's just, yeah, you're just pretty dead. Because if your plan is just to go Haven this turn, let it die, and then Sprites Gift play the second Haven next turn, like that second Haven's not really stabilizing you, and you're probably dead unless your shields are really gross. But even then, like you're definitely losing them all, or not definitely, but you're likely to lose them all, and you're just clearing like one Arbiter. One, yeah, it's definitely awkward. So yeah. Long thing for Loui because this is obviously the crucial turn. I mean, he's already way behind, and what he needs to do is going to be pretty tough. Yeah, it looks like he thought about Sprites gifting the major owl so he could go Haven plus owl, which, I mean, Haven plus owl would be kind of reasonable because, well, he would just be able to like clear an Iron Will tree, I guess, or 2 Iron Will trees if I want to protect the Arbiter. But he opts to just go for Terra Pit to clear the Andromeda. To be honest, this seems. No, I mean, that makes sense. You're just scared of dying. Like if I just Storm Spark and just go to kill him, because if I just go like break with Andromeda, then break with Haven, and then I have like Lyra and Arbiter that both need to be answered, and if not, then you just lose, which is definitely scary. So there's like a decent chance I do, even though I was talking about trading in with Andromeda to his Haven to play it safe. There's like a decent chance that he just dies, but maybe that is the play. Is like you just, because I probably do trade if you're gonna just use. I think the major outplay was probably better, right? Because if you're just gonna use the Terra Pit to clear the Andro, I feel like you need to develop something. Because like one of the ways I feel like Loui can win this game is like maybe if he goes for the Haven Owl major owl play, well probably not even. He doesn't even have to get the major owl to be fair. Like he can just save the Sprite's gift for next turn. But if he just plays the Haven, if I Storm Spark and go for game, one of the ways he can potentially win is if I just break one of his last Storm Spark. To be fair, like he only has one left because he's got one in hand and two in deck. So one of the ways he wins though is if I decide I'm gonna go for game with that extra Andromeda still in play, which might be the play, which might be something Louis worried about and why he decided to go for the Terra Pit. But that feels like kind of just like a lose less play because like again, like if one of the ways he can win is if he just jams the Haven, I Storm Spark, I go for game by attacking with that Andromeda first. If I break a Storm Spark there, then he taps my board down. Obviously, I still have a bunch of stuff in play, but then next turn he can go Sprite's Gift back to the second Haven, attack over my Haven, and then he's got like an untapped Haven in play. And he only really knows about the Root Trap, I think. He doesn't know about this Storm Spark I drew for turn this turn, obviously, but which would maybe foil some of those plans. But still, like he can. I feel like that would be a pretty good position if he's worried about me just being able to game strike him. I think he kind of has to. Like, because this is just kind of a hopeless play where he's not really adding anything to the board. I get another free attack in on his shields. I get another another unchallenged attack on his shields. Another draw off Haven. It feels like you're not really accomplishing too much with that Terra Pit. Whereas if you had played the Haven, if I make the aggressive play to try to kill him, there's a way he can just steal that game. And even if I go for the trade, then it's accomplishing the same thing, which is killing the Andromeda as the Terra Pit. But there's like so it's accomplishing the same thing because at the same time, like you might be saying, well, using a Terra Pit on the Andromeda is not as bad as using a Haven to kill the Andromeda. But the thing is, he uses that Sprite's Gift that he used to turn into the Terra Pit could have been used to turn into a second Haven. So you're effectively trading a Haven for an Andromeda with the play he made anyways. So I think, yeah, I mean, that just makes a lot of sense. If he goes for the Haven, then it's effectively the same as Terra Pitting the Andromeda if I go for the trade. But it also has that kind of upside offshoot where I make the aggressive play, try to kill him, and it backfires on me if I just hit a Storm Spark or something. And because otherwise, there's just no way. I don't see how he can win the game from this spot with just Terra Pitting. Like all this said, like he's in a really, really poor position regardless. But it feels like maybe there was an opportunity to play a little different there. And then, oh wow, I just completely, yeah, I don't know. I just messed up my numbers. I think I remember attacking with this Arbiter, breaking a shield, and then I was looking at his remaining shield count, and I'm like, wait, how do I not have lethal here? And I realized, like, for whatever reason, like, my dumb brain just, like, poke with the Arbiter, like, randomly instead of the Lyra. Like, I was just supposed to attack with the Lyra first, and then potentially have lethal if the Arbiter walks through to get the final attack in, but somehow I just like absentmindedly just poke with the Arbiter first and just missed potential lethal, which is not too bright a maneuver, to be fair. And yeah, I would have just won the game if I had just like actually paid attention to anything. So yeah, I mean, that was bad. That was bad. So yeah, I mean now there's nothing Loui can do because like that's the problem is like unless he has the Storm Spark in those first two shields anyways, there's no way he doesn't at the very least lose all his shields. At which point like yeah, I don't see how the Terraput's accomplishing anything there because he knows I have the Storm Spark, which is what I guess he was worried about to not play the Haven. But the thing is like again, like unless he has Storm Spark in those first two shields that I break with the Lyra, which that I should have broken with the Lyra, I should say, then he's losing all those shields regardless, and then he's just dead no matter what because he knows I have the Storm Spark and he knows he's out of Andromedas. So it feels like yeah, that Terra Pit was just a like I don't know. It felt like it didn't really accomplish anything. The one way you maybe had to win that game was probably to just jam the Haven and hope for that Storm Spark, or I mean, you probably just die anyways. You would have died regardless. But it basically, like I said, it basically accomplishes the same thing as Terra Pitting, except there's the offshoot that I make the different play, and then potentially, if you get lucky, you could steal a win. We're talking about minor things here, but there was maybe an opportunity there. I don't know. But yeah, game one, just went smoothly for me. We basically just drew past a lot, but I had the Haven, just landed the Haven, and then was able to just keep chaining tap effects. And it just went pretty smoothly. Just killed a couple Andromedas, and then, yeah, not much to say, to be honest. And then, I guess crucially as well, Loui chose to go first, which I think, in my opinion, gives me a pretty significant edge. Because I think, if I'm going first, I think it's maybe I might still be a favorite, but it's like a slight favorite. But going second, I think I'm a pretty heavy favorite in most games. On average, I should say, because that's how this matchup functions. Like I was talking about in the whole long spiel at the beginning, it's kind of one of those things where you just look at on the averages, because we're both trying to do the same thing. It's just kind of how frequently, how often can you execute that thing, and on average, my deck does it more. I don't know, whatever. However you want to think about it. But yeah, going second here again, I have the Ironwool Tree. No ramp cards in my hand, which is a little unfortunate. Sprout and Energize not too crucial in this matchup, but the other ones, any of the card advantage ramp cards, I'm really looking for. I see a Haven, and of course I want to protect that Haven from a potential Mesmerize, so I throw out the Ironwool Tree here, saving the Root Trap. No reason to charge it there. Like I was saying, it's one of my more important cards. Not as crucial as like the primary stuff, like the card advantage ramp pieces. I could definitely see I should probably hold it over this Sprout. Ugh. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, I don't know about this. Yeah, like I just ignored what future me would think. And I get punished too because I would have drawn that. Obviously that you can't really think like that, but if I had made the right play, I would have got rewarded for it. Because I think, yeah, just casting Sprouts is not the most important thing to be doing. Like, it puts you ahead, and obviously it's relevant to some degree, but like charging Root Trap, it can leave me open to some of the draws that Loui has that are relevant, those being Underworld Stalker plus Storm Spark draws. So I would have liked to kind of hold that for a little bit longer until it was a card that necessitated being charged. And here, yeah, I don't think Loui really had the opportunity. I think he charged Major Owl really early in the game just to unlock fire. So I wasn't really sure in the first game if he was going to try to play the matchup more aggressively or if he was going to try to just play the long game with me. Because I guess like there's the potential for him to just go this like Major Owl Lyra beatdown, which he's kind of got lined up here. So there's a potential for him to take that route in the game. And when he charged like the Major Owl turn 1 the first game, I figured he was probably just trying to play the long game. And it's probably something that's maybe hand dependent for Loui, but Yeah, so here I keep the root trap and then, yeah, just charge, play Lyra. Lyra does a good job challenging the owl. But now, like, I've played out a couple. I mean, that's why it's also important for me to go second. Like, with Ironwill Tree, it's like a card I have to kind of just, like, discard into play to prevent his discard cards from, like, sniping my Havens and my 2-for-1 ramp cards. And, like, going second gives you the extra card to afford to be able to do that. Because otherwise, like, if you play out a blocker, when you're on the play, you're just so low on resources to actually be able to hit land drops out of your hand. And, yeah, I mean, he's set up pretty decent here. But both of us have played to the board maybe more than we'd like to. And I'm kind of really, I don't know. So here, interesting. Draws a Terror Pit. And he has... So he could get like really aggressive here. Maybe even like charge the Andromeda. Terror Pit like the Lyra and just like just send for 3 shields. Which is kind of crazy because it's like I'm only 2 turns away from an Andromeda, which kind of like really thwarts the Lyra owl beatdown plan. So it's kind of a good thing I probably cast that Sprout. But this play seems, yeah, really, really defensive. Like, when he makes this trade, I think I'm really, really happy about that. Because it shows, like, he's not willing to make an aggressive push, which is maybe... It's a worry. Because I feel like when he shows he's not willing to make the aggressive push, it means we're going to be playing a longer game. And with this Haven in my hand, with the Root Trap to answer, like, an Underworld Stalker or whatever else, like, I just feel like I'm in the better spot there. Now it could be that like maybe Loui has his own like Haven that he's playing towards as well, which is why he wants to also do that. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Like maybe as we get more experience in this matchup, in this particular matchup, maybe that's a spot where you do want to just like Terror Pit the Lyra and just go in. But obviously it's just so medium because like I just get 3 cards, maybe find an Andromeda, then next turn I just draw, charge, Root Trap the Lyra. He's got like no pressure in play anymore. Maybe if he draws like a second owl. Like if he had a second owl follow up, that would be really scary for me. But at the same time, like if I just hit like an Arbiter off these first 2 or something just to tap that owl, then that's a lot of less pressure anyway as well, and then I can just Root Trap and there's like no way I'm dying and really comfortable. Then I can just land an Andromeda and it's pretty smooth sailing from there. So it's just like a pretty risky line of play, but maybe in this matchup when you're on the play, that's the kind of line that you have to take to have a chance if you're Louis' deck. I could definitely see that being the case, but I guess that's something that we need to maybe flesh out with a little more testing. But it's like also it's really only really relevant to this like particular configuration of both of our decks, and it can change a lot depending on like a few differences in card choices. So I don't know, kind of a feeling out process. I feel like that might have been a good spot to go aggressive, potentially charge Andromeda, potentially charge this. I would have also liked to, if you're gonna charge the Terror Pit and hold this Andromeda, I would have liked to see not making an attack with the Lyra at all. Like I would have liked to not see that trade. I get like maybe he's trying to protect his major owl because like I could just drop an Arbiter and then use my Lyra to attack over the... Or no, wait, his major owl was tapped, I believe. Yeah, I've gone too far forward. So he wants to protect his major owl, I guess. Yeah, which is fair. Even in that spot, though, I would... Like, I would maybe just hold this. It's kind of iffy. I guess it's not. It depends if you're going to cast. If you know you're going to cast this for sure or not. Because if you know you're going to cast this Incineration, then you could have just not traded Lyras. And then you lose your major out of my Lyra, but then you can just incineration both Iron Will Tree and Lyra, and then instead of having this major out in play, you have a Lyra in play, and maybe that's a slight upgrade. So like I don't know. I guess that's a pretty minor thing. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? But yeah, I don't know. I might have liked the aggressive, just tear pit and go face, just smash a bit and see how it goes. Now, Iron Will Tree's not off the board, or conversely, just tear pit the Iron Will Tree and try to draw some discard, which in hindsight might have been a pretty decent line. That could be something. Just aggressively try to take me off of our Iron Will Tree as soon as possible. But like this Iron Will Tree has just been really disgusting this game. Like multiple mesmerizes, completely blanked, and that's exactly why it's here. Is because if those mesmerize snipe that Haven, then all of a sudden like I'm a 2 Haven deck against Louis' 2 Haven deck, and again my density's higher on those cards, but I mean it's no guarantee, right? And then it just ups the odds that Louis is the one. Again, it's all about the percentages and who is able to actually hit those percentages, no matter how big they are on average. Like Louis could be the one that hits it in this particular game, and when he closes the gap by sniping my Haven and putting on us on the same amount of Havens in deck, then it just shrinks that gap and makes it more likely that he's the one that lands the first Haven and gets to ride it. And then, but here just plays the Andromeda, and like Andromeda is just not really something I care about at all. Yeah, oh, that's just gross. Yeah. So I have the Haven, obviously. Never don't have it. Just blessed. Very blessed. And peel the Cassie. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's kind of how you want to play, or how you want things to go, is you draw just nice early stuff late game, and then as soon as you hit turn 9, you just top deck an Andromeda, and then you immediately draw Cassiopeia off your Haven once you have all your mana online. And yeah, now this is just gross. Wow. Yeah, and then Louis got kind of bricked on the multi. Yeah, it was rough. I think he chose to... Yeah. That was rough. He went for the Andromeda, which, yeah. I guess you kind of have to do... But he got punished for drawing the Haven exactly that turn. And now he's still punished for... Wow, yeah, just this multi-sim is just the worst timing. Like, it just comes up and he has to charge, like... Yeah, he just misses the Haven immediate drop, and then he also just has to charge this Underworld Stalker. Just brutal. And now I just have a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I just got everything now at this point. I don't know, maybe you could get fancy if you were Louis and just, like... outright, like, charge the... No, just, like, charge the Major Owl and not play the Andromeda in case you draw Haven, but that seems crazy. Yeah, it's really crazy. But yeah, now I just reap and sow here, get a dig for another big giant bomb card. I'm not really scared. Like, if he wants to Stormstark and trade Havens, then he's down the Haven, and I can usually find my second one, and I'm just digging here. I keep Root Trap in hand off the Reap and Sow rather than the Cassiopeia, because I can just get Cassiopeia back off Verdant Helix, and basically I feel like Root Trap is more important than Arbiter, which is a card I'm not able to get off the Helix because I'm choosing to get Cassiopeia instead. So I'm basically making the decision between Root Trap or Arbiter, and I feel like Root Trap's more important because if he gets down that Stalker, again, that's one of the ways you can potentially deal with the Haven. Like, especially if I have to make a play on his shields, because again, I'm down in deck, so I'm the one who has to make the move to actually win the game. So yeah, if I have to attack into his shields, I want a way to be able to clear an Underworld Stalker before I do that. So just take that card. And Kyo comes down. Tries to, I guess, forgets about the power bump. So he gets to kill. I mean, he could trade Andromeda, which doesn't seem very good. he could also just obviously just kill an Iron Will tree outright. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's the thing is like neither of these games. I mean, that kind of show. Well, thing is like neither of these in both of these games, like neither of us really drew our Reap and Sows and stuff early, and like Loui just hasn't seen any at all either game, which is like again, it's key card, and that's the thing is I just had the advantage. Like he put me on the draw. I got to go second, which I think was a big benefit for me in both of these games. And both of them were games that Loui had the choice, and I think that it is a mistake in this matchup to choose to go. And I think a pretty big mistake, actually, like very crucial because of exactly this reason. I mean, neither of us had our good draws where we drew our card advantage early. Obviously, I drew them later in the game, but that was after I dropped my Haven already, so it's kind of irrelevant, right, to say that or whatever. But like neither of us drew our card advantage pieces early, so there was a lot of draw passing, and one of the ways you can mitigate that is by choosing to go second. And me getting to go second on both games by Louis' choice, I think just gave me an even more significant edge in a matchup that I think I was already favored in, obviously, as I've touched on a lot. But yeah, I mean, and then Louis just didn't draw the card advantage pieces. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of how it went. He drew a lot of his relevant discard, but again, it's less relevant when he's going first. And only relevant if he can hit like a really important card like a Haven for the most part, or maybe like a Verdant Helix. And then unfortunately for him, I just had this Iron Will tree that stuck in play the whole game and deaded like all of these discard cards. And yeah, I just keep playing threats, and now I choose to go in, and as soon as I choose to break 3, it's I mean this is what happens. Like the game just completely snowballed out of control. I just drew the first Haven and then drew into I just drew a bunch of bombs, and Loui just flips them up, concedes. Nothing to really do at that point. So yeah, I take that match pretty easily, I think. Things just went my way, like I said. Like getting to go second both games was really big in my estimation. I think having early Iron Will trees both games, that was also pretty crucial, not gonna lie. Even though again, like I didn't really draw the card advantage, which I think was also a big edge. I did find my Havens on time, which was relevant. I mean, Loui did a good job of seeing his Havens in game 1, but he didn't really have the other things go right for him. And I think I mean, maybe like the one thing to think about is in this matchup, like I was saying, like earlier in this kind of game, when you have that Owl and Lyra, maybe you're just supposed to get aggressive, Terra Pit my Lyra, and make a push. Hard to say if it would have worked out. It probably wouldn't have, given that I was like sandbagging a root trap, or not really sandbag, but I had a root trap locked up for next turn. Like, probably doesn't get there, but maybe that's the kind of aggressive play you have to make, because I don't know, like sitting on the Andromeda in hand, it is kind of like appealing. Like you've got your Andromeda, you've got your late game, but the thing is, Andromeda against my deck just isn't really relevant. I just out it so easily with Cassiopeia. I out it so easily just with my 3 Havens. Like, it's just basically a giant double breaker, and once I'm in the stage where I'm attacking, it's usually in a position similar to this, where like, and even game 1, like we saw, I was just able to kind of cruise through 9 shields without too much effort, and same in this game, just 7 shields, no problem. So I don't know, some interesting things to think about in this kind of matchup. It wasn't probably the best match. It was just kind of me hitting my Havens on turn 10 and just kind of cruising, or at 10 mana and just kind of cruising from there. But yeah, again, like interesting things, and these kind of control matchups, late game matchups where you see a lot of cards out of your deck. There's a lot to think about in terms of like how you want to approach the long game, and what matters and what doesn't matter, and how to maximize the things that do matter. And it is really, really contextual on like the specific list. Like a few choices different in Louis' list, and things get a lot more complicated, or things become a lot different in terms of what I have to worry about on my side. And yeah, it's just really weird. And I don't know, a decent amount of the info that I had about this kind of matchup based on my preparation probably wouldn't transfer to other control matchups, just because like it is so, a lot of the decisions are very contextual to the specific makeup of your opponent's deck. So I don't know, kind of interesting. But yeah, this was the final match of the 5 that I played in the event. So I've got all those commentated. So it'll be interesting to see some more of the other decks finish out their event and see how they do. So thanks as always to anyone who was watching these videos and who's been enjoying these coverage videos. I hope to have some other commentators on in the future, just to bring a little bit more excitement on, and a little bit dilute them a bit from my long-winded explanations on things, and get some other perspectives as well. So again, thanks to anyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next videos. Bye.